Good evening and welcome to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, where PGA and LPGA players, legends, and top instructors go to share their stories, insights, and playing lessons. Join Chris every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time as he talks with the greats of the game. Tonight's show is sponsored by the French Lick Resort, Ben Hogan Golf, the PGA Tour Superstore, 2 Under, the Salt Creek Golf Retreat, TaylorMade Golf, the Bobby Jones Apparel Company, and Superspeed Golf. Now, here's your host, Chris Mascaro.
Good evening, folks, and thank you for coming back and joining me tonight here on Next on the Tee. I hope your week is off to a great start. We actually had a sunny day here in Atlanta. No rain for a change, and I'm not sure I remember the last time that happened. And on top of that, the high was 70. It was actually, beautiful golf weather. Wish I could have been out on the golf course today, but missed that opportunity. But hopefully we have a lot better weather now going forward. And here we are. It's Players Week, which is sort of like being the fifth Beatle if you're in such a select group that tournament is, but you're just not one of the Fab Four. You're close, but you're not quite there. But it's a great golf tournament. Always fun to watch. There's nothing like the finishing holes out there at TPC Sawgrass. So looking forward to seeing how things unfold this week there. And speaking of the players, we're going to talk a bit about that throughout tonight's show. And I'm really excited that I'm going to get to do that. I'm going to get to share 3 really great guests with you tonight. My first guest is going to be Champions Tour pro Bob Estes. And Bob is off to a great start this year out on tour. He's got 3 top 15 finishes in the 4 tournaments he's played so far. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about his plans and his goals for the 2019 season. Also want to get his memories of playing in the Arnold Palmer Invitational, the Players and the Masters. And Bob was paired with Mr. Palmer in his final Masters appearance back in 2004. So really looking forward to hearing that story. Also want to get Bob's take on the new rules and how much equipment has changed over the course of his playing career. So a lot to get into and really looking forward to having Bob with me here back on the show. He's going to join me in just a few minutes. Following him, I'll get a return visit from LPGA legend Gail Graham. And Gail is in more Hall of Fames, boy, than you can shake a stick at. She was also the first non-American president of the LPGA. She's from Canada. She won a handful of times out on the Symetra Tour and the LPGA Tour, currently playing out on the LPGA Legends Tour, and plus she's also a great instructor. In fact, she's currently sharing the practice range with my man Tom Patri down there in Naples. So a lot to talk to Gail about as well. She'll join me a little bit later on in this half hour. And speaking of Tom Patri, he'll be back again with me again tonight. And as you guys know, Tom is joining me a couple of times every month. Tonight, I'll get TP's thoughts on the Arnold Palmer Invitational as well and his memories of Mr. Palmer. Plus, Tom has been to Augusta National several times, good friends with Freddie Couples, so they've walked the golf course together, and Tom's been out there watching him several times. So want to talk to him about his memories of Augusta National and what it's like every year when he goes back. Also want to get some playing lessons from Tom, including the importance of having good posture in our setup, right? We can't get the club face back to center if we're not properly set up. So I want to talk about that. Plus the difference between having a good swing and being a good ball striker. How do those two things get off kilter? How can you have one without the other? I want to talk to TP about that. So he'll join me about 40 minutes from now. So a lot more great stories and information coming your way tonight on this edition of Next on the Tee. Thank you so much for tuning in and taking the journey with me again tonight. Before we get started, I always like to remind you about my good friend Mitch Lawrence and his podcast called Talking Golf Getaways. He and his co-host Darren Bunch let you know about great places to play, stay, and even eat and drink while you're out there. Again, their show is called Talking Golf Getaways. Now, it's moved over to a new site, Golf Trip X, and that's the letter X, which stands for expert. So golftripx.com. Go there, check out their show, and learn about some of the hidden gems that are around the country. His twin brother, Matthew, you know how much I dig Matthew. He's fantastic. He's got a great golf show as well called Backspin Golf, which is back on the air now. You can stream it live Sunday mornings from 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Matthew's just so much fun, and all his guests are fantastic. Again, you can stream it live Sunday mornings, 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time by going online to WLXG.com or do what I did and download the WLXG app. And folks, we are sponsored by the French Lick Resort. Let's hear a word from Steve Rondinero about what they've got going on up there.
Play legendary golf at French Lick Resort, the only place in the country where you can play courses by two Hall of Fame designers on the same property. Our Pete Dye and Donald Ross courses offer two very different challenges. Experience them both and save with our Hall of Fame package. Our two historic hotels are unique as well. Cap it off with a fun visit to the French Lick Casino. Check us out online at FrenchLick.com. Bring a group and save even more. Play legendary golf this season at French Lick Resort.
Yeah, folks, go online to FrenchLick.com to check it out yourself, and it's a fantastic place. You're going to see all about it when you go on their website. Be sure to check it out and to book your stay there as well. I also want to tell you about our good friends at the Ben Hogan Golf Equipment Company. Now, folks, if you haven't hit Ben Hogan irons since the 80s or the 90s, do yourself a favor and get a demo iron from either their Fort Worth, PTX, or Edge irons, and go out on the range and compare it to whatever it is you have. All Ben Hogan irons and wedges are handcrafted one at a time in their Fort Worth, Texas factory. No mass production, no shortcuts. Now you can order custom-made irons, wedges, and hybrids by going online to benhogangolf.com. And they're going to build those clubs to your specifications. And best of all, charge you a fraction of the typical retail price. Check out their complete line of forged irons, wedges, utility irons, hybrids, bags, and accessories by going online to benhogangolf.com. And please also check out our friends at the Bobby Jones Apparel Company by going online to bobbyjones.com. They've got their spring collection out now, and it looks absolutely spectacular. Plan ahead for spring and be among the first to sample their happy hour collection. Got my eye on a couple of their great-looking new polos and sweaters. Boy, they're absolutely fantastic. See what I'm talking about by going online to bobbyjones.com. All right, now back with me here on the French Lick Resort guest line is Champions Tour Pro Bob Estes. Let me remind you a little bit about Bob's background. He is from Graham, Texas, played his college golf at the University of Texas from 1984 to 1988, where he was a three-time All-American and a four-time All-Southwest Conference selection. He won the 1988 Haskins Award, which is presented annually to the most outstanding collegiate golfer in the nation. He helped the Longhorns win 3 tournaments in the 86-87 season and 3 more in the 87-88 year. In all, he won 6 times while he was at Texas. At the 1985 Pan American Intercollegiate Tournament, the Morris Williams Tournament twice in 87 and 88. He also won the Harvey Penick Intercollegiate Tournament in 87, and he won the Border Olympics and Rafael Alcon Intercollegiate Tournaments back in 1988. In 1999, Bob was inducted into the University of Texas Hall of Honor. He joined the PGA Tour in 1989 and was named Rookie of the Year by Golf Magazine. He earned his first tour win at the 1994 Texas Open, thanks in part to an opening round 62, and he led that tournament wire to wire. In all, he's won 4 times on the PGA Tour. In addition to the Texas Open, he won the 2001 Invensys Classic in Las Vegas, the 2001 FedEx St. Jude Classic, and the 2002 Kemper Open. On top of those 4 wins, he has 10 runner-up finishes, 8 third-place finishes, and 205 top 25s. On the Champions Tour, he's had 9 top 10 finishes so far, including a third-place finish earlier this season at the Oasis Championship, and last weekend tied for 15th at the Hogue Championship, and I'm very excited. He is back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Good evening, Bob. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, Chris. Glad to join you.
So, Bob, first, before we get into all the golf stuff, I got to get your thoughts on your Texas Longhorns in football. Finished ranked 9th last season, 10-4 season, nice win over Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. Is Texas back? Are we going to see the Longhorns back in the top 10 and fighting for a playoff now?
I think so now. We weren't for sure during the season, but I guess deeper into the season, they definitely started playing a lot better and then capped it off with that big win against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. So just like Sam Ellinger said, I think we're back.
Bob, I want to get we're on the heels now of the Arnold Palmer Invitational last weekend, and you've had some success playing in that event. You tied for second in 98 just behind Ernie Els. Want to get your recollections of being out there at Bay Hill and your memories of playing in that event, plus of Mr. Palmer.
Yeah, that was always a special event to play in. You know, it was one of the invitationals, so it was a little bit more difficult to qualify for, you know, than just a regular PGA Tour event. Not everybody got to play. I think you had to be on in the top 70 on the either current money list or the previous year's money list to qualify for that one. And so you had to play to a higher standard. So I wasn't in it every year, but I remember playing it a number of years. And it was always special to be there and to see Mr. Palmer in the locker room and around and on the golf course. And so, yeah, I did have that runner-up finish that 1 year and always enjoyed playing there.
And speaking of Mr. Palmer, Bob, you got the opportunity to play with him, be paired with him at the 2004 Masters, his last Masters appearance. Boy, that had to be something special.
It was. I'd gotten to know a number of the committee members at Augusta National, and so that was quite an honor to be selected to be one of the ones that was chosen to play with him in his last Masters. I believe Nathan Smith was. I'm just making sure I have the correct last name. Who was the mid-amateur champ? He was the other member of our group for those 2 days, and so yeah, it was quite special. I think we had pretty good weather for the 2 days. And so it was, everybody was out and excited to watch Mr. Palmer, and he was excited to see them. And he would usually hit a shot and then walk over near the ropes where he was able to, visit with people that had been coming to watch him play for, 50 plus years.
When you're walking that final time with Mr. Palmer, what was it like for you? Were you interacting, getting the opportunity to talk to him and remembering his event, or are you locked in at that point because it's not a practice round? To you, it means a lot. To him, it was a ceremonial round. But how did you deal with trying to have your own score and be a part of the Masters, but also soak in the experience with Mr. Palmer?
Well, it was a little bit difficult, but I'm glad that I got to experience it. I can't remember everything about the 2 days, obviously, and I was very focused on trying to win the Masters because I had come close in 1999 when I tied for fourth. I wasn't playing quite as well at the time in 2004, and as it turns out, it was my last Masters as well, or at least up to now. But yeah, it was a great experience. I remember talking to Sam a lot. A couple of things happened, during those 2 days. I can't remember if both incidents happened on the same day or not, but Mr. Palmer told us not to tell anybody. So I'm not at liberty to tell those stories yet until Sam gives me permission to. So that's something just between me and Sam and my caddy Chuck at this point. But yeah, but I was very focused. I was certainly, prepared as best I could be at the time. And I remember having to make par on the last hole just to make the cut. And that's definitely a cut that you do not want to miss at the Masters. Everybody wants to not just play the Masters, but play the weekend as well. And so I parred the last and got to play the weekend. And yeah, it was a great week.
And just to expound just a little bit on your Masters experience, what's it like? Getting the opportunity, you drive up Magnolia Lane, you're part of the Masters, the history, the golf course itself, and everything that goes along with it. Is it different than any other place? Is it different than playing in the other majors? What's it like being a part of the Masters field?
Oh, it's amazing. From the very first time that I went there, it's almost hard to put into words, but it's just, it seems like the week of the Masters, it seems almost like the world stopped. And so everybody's in such a cheerful mood, and there's just no place else that any of us would rather be the week of the Masters. Just such a beautiful setting for a golf course. Everybody's so nice and so respectful of the players and the members and the game of golf in general. It's just such an amazing week every year.
And as you talked about, you finished tied for fourth in 99. So I'm imagining you're going to bed after the third round on Saturday night, and you're only a couple of strokes back. Are you thinking to yourself, "Oh my God"?
Well, yeah, but up to that point, that's I'd always hoped and planned on winning the Masters, and so I was looking forward to it, and I was playing well at the time, and my short game was probably as sharp as it had ever been. And so I'm sure I hit it, good enough, but my short game was really, really sharp that week. And I remember in particular, on that back nine, I believe I made 8 pars and a birdie, but I was all over the hole and just could not get it to go down. So things could have turned out differently, but it was still a great experience.
So, Bob, this week we look ahead to the Players' Championship, and you played in that tournament many times. What What are some of your memories of being a part of that great golf tournament?
The thing about the Players Championship is just how difficult it usually is. Now, I guess when I moved to the springtime or moved to May, in 2007, typically the golf course, it may be played firmer and faster, but the weather can play havoc with that tournament, as we've seen in the past. And so the weather does dictate a lot as far as how that course and tournament, play out. But it's a tournament that I've played well at times, and a tournament that I've really struggled at times. So I looked up some of my finishes, and I think my best finish was a tie for 15th in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. But I also noticed that there were a couple of scores that I shot in the 80s as well. So I played a lot in the spring. More of my Players Championships were, from 1990 through 2006. There might have been, or 2005 or 6. Yeah, I'm trying to remember one of those years in there. I think I wasn't exempt and missed. But yeah, you get a lot of those cold fronts that are still maybe pushing through in March. And you can get some pretty strong north winds. So I remember playing in some really bad weather at times, whether it was rain or wind or both. And that really makes it interesting on those last couple of holes, 17 and 18.
And speaking of 17, is that the most nerve-wracking tee shot in golf?
Probably so. I'm sure there's a few others, but as far as just the 16th at in Phoenix at TPC Scottsdale, that's pretty nerve-wracking as well. But you missed the green there, and you don't have to re-tee. It's very nerve-wracking, and so you have to really focus and try to calm yourself down and just hit the shot. And for the most part, you're almost always just playing to the center of the green there. But even the center of the green is hard to hit with a wedge or 9 or 8 iron. When your heart is beating that fast and you're maybe playing into a, 10, 15, 20 mile an hour wind or a crosswind. So it's, and obviously all those people watching, with that amphitheater setting. So yeah, it's a really nerve-wracking shot.
What's the best and worst shot, whether it was you or somebody else that you might have been playing with? What's the best shot you've seen there? What's the worst shot you've seen?
Well, obviously we see a lot of the replays of guys that have made hole-in-ones, or the shot where I think Fred hit it in the water and then either re-teed it or went to the drop circle and hold it for a 3. And I actually did that once. I don't remember what year it was, but one of those years I hit it in the water, went to the drop circle, and then hold my third shot for a par. So that was pretty cool. Can't remember how I did that particular year, but yeah, we've seen all kinds. You've seen the shots that in particular where guys hit it, and they hit it perfectly solid, and they're posing on it, and it doesn't even land on the green. Typically, it might fly over the back, or one hop, off the back of the green into the water. And so I've hit a number of balls in the water there. I was actually glad to hear about the tournament moving back to the spring, because every week of the Players Championship, they always flash up that balls in the water leaderboard for career or going back to a certain year. And I think Bob Tway is leading that, and I think I might still be in second place. So I was glad to hear they're moving back to March. So I'm hoping that some of the veteran players will, get wet a time or two, maybe bump me down the list, or maybe I'll move off of that list at some point, and I won't have to be reminded of it every year.
That's great. Bob, switching gears a little bit, all the rage right now on golf radio has been about the rules changes, particularly the new drop rule. What do you and your peers out on the Champions Tour, what do you guys think about it?
I don't think too many guys have, on the Champions Tour at least, too much trouble with the drop, except maybe for the guys with, bad backs. But I remember at the U.S. Senior Open last year talking to somebody with the USGA about the proposed drop and how we might be changing that. And, my suggestion was just anywhere between shoulder height and knee height. It's like, why does it have to be so precise? Especially when you're able to often drop the ball anywhere within 2 club lengths or 1 club length, depending on the drop or the rule at the time. But that obviously didn't get either passed on or accepted because now we're just dropping it knee height. So it's not that big a deal. I kind of understand why they did it, but, that one is just not as big a deal as maybe some of the other rules changes that, I might disagree with.
So to that end, what are some of the other ones you've looked at and you're scratching your head going, I don't get this?
The one in particular, that I don't agree with is the one about, a damaged club. Not damaged out of anger, but maybe you just, you're hitting shot up against a tree and the shaft breaks, or you're hitting one of obviously these drivers with very thin faces, the faces crack. And so, on the PGA Tour and on the Champions Tour, we're usually able to, quickly have a replacement club, in our bag. A rules official might have to go and grab one of the locker and bring it back out to us. But that's something that I disagree with as far as the new rule. I think that, we should be able to, replace a driver. We almost always have, exact replicas of the first team driver that we play, or, putter, sandwich, 3-wood, whatever. And so I think that, we should have still been able to, replace those clubs. I tweeted, a couple weeks ago about a scenario. Imagine if Tiger Woods was, had a one-shot lead, or anybody else, teeing off the last round of the Masters, right there next to the clubhouse, let's say, and the opening tee shot, the face of his driver cracks. He could easily just walk, steps in the locker room and grab the back of that driver, but that's no longer allowed. So he'd be playing the last round of the Masters without a driver, or a driver he'd be comfortable with hitting. He could still maybe hit it, but who knows where the ball might go. So that's one of the rules I do, or one of the rule changes I disagree with.
What about the flag stick? Are you using the flag stick in the cup, or are you old school still pulling it out?
I'm doing both. And one thing that I explain to people is a lot of times, don't forget, from long range, we've always had the flag stick tended. So it's not so much about the flag being in versus out, and the ball's with the flag stick and, stay in or bounce away or whatever. A lot of times it has to do with just perception, being able to see better. So on longer putts in particular, I'll just have my caddy leave the flag in. No need to, I could have him obviously tended and remove it, but for the most part, on longer putts, and other players in the Champions Tour have been doing the same thing. We just leave the flag in from longer distance. Just so we can also just, see and judge the distance better. So, some guys will still leave it in for shorter putts, but not very often on the Champions Tour. Seems like most of the guys do it kind of like I do it. We'll leave it in on the longer putts and take it out on the shorter putts. Sometimes the guy might roll it up there a few inches and still just go ahead and tap it in with the flag in. But usually when we're putting, anywhere inside, 20 feet, guys do it kind of like we have in the past, and just have the caddy remove the flag stick. Not often you're going to hit a putt so hard that you'd have to worry about the flag stick actually slowing your ball down. That's kind of how we go about that on the Champions Tour. Most guys anyway.
Bob, just a couple more before we let you go, and I want to get your thoughts on golf equipment. It has certainly come a long ways since your late 80s when you first started getting out on the PGA Tour. How much better is it now than from when you started? And are you driving the ball the same distance that you were? You're 53 now. Driving the same distance as you were when you were 23 and 33? Oh, no. I'm hitting the ball much further. So are the rest of the guys on the Champions Tour. Before, it's not just about the golf ball. It's a combination of all those factors. The solid core balls, the hot faces or thin faces, and graphite shafts. So that's one of the things that's, not talked about as often. I have a couple different drivers that I play depending on the golf courses or the day of, the tournament or whatever. I have a locker driver that's about 45 inches, which I use a 60-gram shaft in, and my shorter driver, which is about 44 inches, has a 70-gram shaft. So what I was going to say is because of the weight of the clubs and being able to make them longer and having the ability to swing them faster and generate more club head speed,
yeah, it's just a whole lot different than what it was in the past. And we were playing wood and woods and heavy steel shafts, you know, straight through the back. So, yeah, a combination of all those factors allows us to hit the ball quite a bit further than we did, you know, when we were quite a bit younger.
And Bob, as you look out for the rest of the 2019 season, what do you have goals set for yourself? What are you trying to achieve? What are you hoping for out of this year?
Well, this is my first year that I'm planning on playing just straight Champions Tour events and playing a full schedule. The last couple of years, because of the major medical that I still had from a shoulder impingement I developed in 2013, I was splitting time with both tours. I did finish up last year playing mostly pretty much just on the Champions Tour, but and just barely missed the final event by one shot, basically playing in those 15 events. But this year, you know, I'll play, you know, 23 or 4 or 5 or whatever. There's 27 events total, but a couple of them, or at least the first one I was not eligible for. So yeah, the Charles Schwab Cup is something that I would certainly love to win, just like everybody else that's out there. Yeah, playing a full schedule to try to achieve that goal. And if I don't win it, I'm still trying to finish just as high as I can at that points list at the end of the year.
Bob, before we let you go, let our listeners know, how can they stay up to date with all the great things you're doing and follow you, whether it's online or it's on social media?
Most people that do know me, I know that I spend probably too much time on Twitter, but I am on Twitter a lot, Bob Estes PGA. We talk a lot of golf and politics, and then I'm maybe getting on Instagram just a little bit more. I think that's Bob A. Estes on Instagram. So maybe I'll spend a little bit more time on that. I actually was on it a little bit today, but more so on Twitter. So that's where you'll get more information and maybe get to know me a little bit better.
Well, Bob, it's always great having you as part of the show. You're a great guest, and I always enjoy our conversation and listening to you talk about your stories and your insights. I can't thank you enough for coming back and being generous with your time tonight. I hope you'll come back and join me again real soon.
I will. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Bob. All the best to your family. Take care.
Okay, thank you. You too.
That is Bob Estes, and wow, what a great story! In Mr. Palmer's last Masters, he gets paired with him and gets to spend those 2 rounds with him. What an unbelievable story! And I'll tell you, Bob, like I say, is off to a great start on the Champions Tour. He's played in 4 tournaments, and he's got 3 top 15s, including a top 3 here recently. So doing great stuff. I really look forward to catching up with Bob, having him back on the show, and really following his success all season out there on the Champions Tour. Before I get to my next guest, Gail Graham, I want to remind you about a couple of our sponsors. TaylorMade Golf has done it again. The all-new TaylorMade M5 and M6 drivers have arrived, and what a story. They both feature speed-injected twist base, created through a revolutionary manufacturing process where every single head, and I mean every single head, is injected and calibrated to the threshold of the legal limit. Basically, every head now is Tour Spicy. Speed for all. Now available. Check it out online by going to TaylorMadeGolf.com. And this segment of the show is sponsored by our friends at the PGA Tour Superstore.
This segment of the show is brought to you by the PGA Tour Superstore. See why golfers everywhere are proud to call PGA Tour Superstore their golf pro shop. Visit them online at PGATourSuperstore.com. Now back to Chris and more of the show.
And now back with me here on the French Lick Resort guest line is LPGA player and legend Gail Graham. Let me remind you a little bit about Gail's background. She's from Vanderhoof, British Columbia, out there in Western Canada. She played her college golf at Lamar University, where she was a 4-year letterman and an academic All-American in 1986. She was a member of their 1983 team that finished 7th in the NCAA Division I National Championship. She was inducted into the Lamar University Hall of Honor back in February of 2000. Gail finished 5th in the Canadian Amateur Championship in 1985 and won the Manitoba Amateur Championship and the SMU Fall Classic that same year. She was a member of the Canadian Commonwealth Championship team in 1987, turned pro in 88 and won the Manhattan Futures Classic title. She qualified for the LPGA Tour in 1990 by finishing 5th at the LPGA qualifying tournament in the year before there in 89. She got her first win on tour at the 1995 Fieldcrest Cannon Open by 2 strokes over Tammy Green. She won again in 97 at the Australian Ladies Masters by 1 stroke over Kari Webb. She won the 98 Canadian PGA Women's Championship as well, and in 2001, she became the first non-American president of the LPGA Tour. 2002, she was awarded the William Mousy Powell Award, which is given annually to the LPGA player whose behavior and deeds exemplify the spirit, ideals, and values of the LPGA Tour. 2008, she was inducted into the Manitoba Golf Hall of Fame. 2015, inducted into the British Columbia Hall of Fame. And you can see her now out on the LPGA Legends Tour, plus alongside my good friend Tom Patri down at Esplanade Golf and Country Club in Naples, Florida. And I am honored she is back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Good evening, Gail. Thanks for coming back on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for that great introduction.
You are welcome. So, Gail, I got to ask you right off the top, what's it like sharing the practice tee with Tom Patri?
This is a family show, right? No, just kidding.
No, there's no kids listening right now. Go ahead.
It's awesome. I've learned an immense amount from Tom Patri. He's given me a wonderful opportunity to be next door to him on the tee box, and we've got a nice spot down there down here at Esplanade, and the members are wonderful, and we've got lots of outside students that come in, and it's always a treat to be with Tom out there and listen to him teach and watch how he does things. Like I said, I've learned a ton, and he's been really great to me.
And you guys are both members of Golf Tip Magazine's Top 25 Instructors. Talk about now the role that you're playing with them, and also some of the instruction that we can find available in their magazine when we subscribe.
Well, I'm working on some of the articles now. Did a great photo shoot on a freezing cold day up in Orlando just before the PGA show, and so I've got all those to put together. I'm a firm believer that we need to try to help the golfer swing how their body is allowing them to, and so I have found some keys that make some difference for older players, and one of them being rotation. So I've got a rotation. It's almost like a workshop on how to make your body turn a little bit better, and how to use pressure and weight shift to be able to get you to your left side, to your forward foot. Excuse me. I got to think about those lefties out there because I've got a few of them, and just try to get them through onto their forward foot so that they're making a motion towards the target rather than into the ground at the ball. So that's one of the things I'm working on. I think your short game is always a big topic with me, and I know with Tom as well. And, having played so many years of competitive golf, you really want to make it as simple as possible and have a little bit of a plan and a type of technique that is very repeatable. And, that's part of the game that I think now post-tour is much better for me, as my short game is pretty solid. And, that's kind of nice when the ball goes awry. You've got to be able to get it up and down from the trash can sometimes. And so that's another part that I'll be working on too.
Gail, you mentioned the cold up in Orlando, and for all of us that live a little north of Florida, we are just now starting to see the temperatures get nice outside, and hopefully we're going to start to see some warmer, nicer weather. But for all of us that are just now getting our golf clubs out of hibernation, what's the best way to get ourselves reacclimated for the new golf season?
Well, I really think there needs to be especially as you get older, some attention paid to your flexibility. I have spent a good part of this winter working out with a trainer who's TPI certified, to give me opportunity to stretch the muscles that I want for my golf swing that, maybe over the course of definitely the winter, they would, maybe atrophy or just not be used to, the motion that the golf swing requires. And I think it's really important to get your body ready to make that motion. And I mentioned rotation earlier, just some things that you can do to make your body feel what that is going to feel like when you then have an impact. It's one thing to just stand up and stretch in the morning, but, making sure that your wrists are loose and your forearms aren't tight and your hamstrings have some flexibility in them and your lower back is stretched out. even taking a couple clubs and just swinging with the weight of 2 clubs instead of 1, or an orange whip. That kind of thing will help you loosen up for your golf swing, and to take it and swing it the opposite direction too. Try to balance it out. My golf swing is not very pretty from the left-hand side of the golf ball. But if I know that if I swing from the left-hand side of the golf ball a little bit before I start hitting balls, I'm better able to have some good extension through the ball because I've loosened that side of my body up, and I think that's a really big part of it. Leg strength and low back strength is super important as well, trying to make sure that you're strong there. We try to use those muscles, especially as a smaller person and a shorter person. I try to use what my dad used to call my lower center of gravity, my back and my legs to drive through the golf ball and to make that good rotation to be able to hit solid golf shots and repeat my golf swing. So, I think that's really important. I also think that as coming out of the winter, if you're going to approach the game with sort of a new vigor, then really, really turn your focus to your short game. I was just listening to Bob at the end saying he hits it further now than he did earlier in his career, and I could say the same thing too, and that equipment has a lot to do with that, and the ball has a lot to do with that. But at the same time, I think I'm in better shape than I was near the end of my golf career on tour. So I think that plays a role in it as well. So just, making sure that you're physically ready to play, and then working on the short game so that your scores will go down a lot quicker. Those strokes seem to count just the same as that long tee shot. So we should really be working there. And that's the basis of the full golf swing comes in that little half swing. So if we can get that feeling comfortable and making a good motion through the golf ball, you go to swing with the bigger clubs, you'll be far better off and have better tempo with them.
And Gail, I remember Jack Nicklaus always talking about how at the beginning of every new golf season, he would start out making sure his fundamentals were right. And when I was looking over on your website, GailGrahamGolf.com, I know that's important to you as well. How can we make sure we're starting off back, with the right grip and the proper stance and all of those sorts of things?
Well, those are definitely things that are I consider the sort of 4 sort of core fundamentals. I call them the gaps: grip, alignment, posture, and stance. And under each one, obviously, there's a few details for it. So, the grip is the only way we have contact with the golf club. And if your grip is incorrect, it's going to mess up the rest of your golf swing. So start there and definitely see an instructor and make sure that you're holding on to the club correctly. It's hard to make a good golf swing if you're not starting from a good starting point. So, alignment wise, I am amazed. The more I teach, I am amazed at how many people think that their body needs to align at the target. And the body's a whole lot bigger than that club face. So if your club face is aimed at the target, but your body is as well, you're going to have a hard time making that the actual target. So we want to make sure that we're parallel to our target line with our body instead of aiming at the target. So that's very important. And I like to tell people, if you use your eyes and you let your body react, you will align a lot quicker and a lot more consistently in that position where you're parallel to your target line. So very important. Posture-wise, obviously we need a little angle to our swing to be able to take that club up over our shoulder and swing it back down to the ball. So posture really being important in that if your spine is curved and kind of rounded and your chin's in your chest, you're going to have an awfully hard time repeating your golf swing. So there has to be some straightness to your spine. And if you feel like you can tip over to the ball with your arms hanging very nicely from your shoulders and you're not reaching out to the golf ball, you're going to be able to make a nice turn in your backswing. So posture's super important. And then with the stance, if we're too wide, we have a hard time getting a nice turn through our golf swing. We tend to slide a little bit. So you want to have a reasonable width to your setup. Kind of, you'll say shoulder width, but it's amazing how many people, their shoulder width is quite a bit larger than their shoulders. So I like to do a little test on people to see if they're biomechanically, they become balanced with their stance width. And really what it ends up being is, the inside of your shoulders match the inside of your heels. And if you're pretty close to that, your stance is going to be a correct width. And then looking at within your stance where your weight is. Good posture will allow you to get your weight sort of forward onto your shoelaces near the balls of your feet as opposed to back on your heels so that your legs can be involved in the golf swing. If we get back on our heels, we have a hard time making a motion with our legs and our lower body being involved. So those 4 things, the gaps, I like to have them, give a checkup to everyone when pretty much every lesson, no matter they've been with me for one lesson or for a whole bunch. That's one of the first things I look at are those 4 things, just to make sure they're correct every time. And, some of the younger students that I teach, the kids that are in high school and college, I remind them all the time that if they're golf swing or they feel bad on the golf course, if things are not happening, go back and check those. That's easy to check when you're on the golf course and realize that maybe one of those things is out of whack and makes for a hard time to make the ball to go where you want it to. So fundamentals definitely important. Get out and see your golf professional, early in the season to get those checked.
And Gail, another thing that I found on your website was a blog that you wrote regarding chipping and really having intention. And I think that's something a lot of we amateurs struggle with. We're sort of committed to the shot when we're standing over it, but we don't fully commit. We get a little indecisive. We decelerate the club on the way down because we're not quite sure that was the right shot, and then we end up chunking it and coming up way short. How can we do a better job of committing to a shot?
Well, having that intention, you mentioned that. So one of the things I like to tell people is that if you make a list, take to the grocery store, and you leave it at home, you might get everything that you had on the list, but you might get a few other things, and you will certainly be very inefficient in how you go through the grocery store. You'll be all over the place. You'll be back over here, aisle 4, and then aisle 10, and then you have to go back to aisle 4. So that's how not making a plan when you hit any shot. But if you have a plan when you're getting ready to hit a chip shot, your brain really likes that organization. And so if you choose not only, where you want the ball to end up, ultimately, hopefully the bottom of the cup, but also where you want the ball to land. And if you really pay attention to where you want that ball to land, when you make your motion in that chip shot and you do land it there, the result is going to be what you wanted it to. If you catch it a little thin, you might have a little top spin so that it'll land short but roll out to the pin. Or if you catch it really crisp, then you might have a little backspin so it'll carry a little bit further, it'll grab a bit, and then the result will be not so bad either. So if you have that intention, that actual commitment to what you want to do with your shot, I think you're going to be far better off. One of the biggest mistakes that amateur recreational golfers have is they stop at the ball. They don't let their swing, their motion in that chip shot finish. So I would say equal parts. If it goes back to 8 o'clock in your backswing, you need to go through to 8 o'clock in your or 4 o'clock in your follow through. Make that an even stroke back and through, just like the pendulum of a grandfather clock. And that's going to provide you with much better acceleration, steady acceleration through the ball. So you might actually hit the club face rather than the leading edge of the golf club or really down at the bottom groove where the ball will then just go skidding across the green. And it's incredible to me how many people think if I actually swing through that far, then the ball's going to go too far. I had a lady I was working with this morning who I was trying to get her to swing her hands from waist high to waist high. So back to waist high in the backswing and through the ball to waist high in the follow through. She was terrified. And every time she stopped at the ball would go zinging across the green. And then when she finally let it go from 9 o'clock all the way back to 3 o'clock, she hit this beautiful high lofted shot. She stood around, turned around and looked at me and just her chin just dropped and her mouth just hung open. And I said, see? And she goes, wow, I never would have thought that could have happened. Sort of the misnomers of the game. We want to swing through the ball, not to the ball. So, like you said, intention is very important in every shot you hit. And I think when you get closer to the green, you can be far more precise. And if you learn to hit different, clubs to land at the spot you want it to land at, you'll see that if you land the 8-iron there in a little chip shot, it'll roll out quite a ways. If you land the sandwich it's not going to roll out quite as much. So then you can go ahead and make a educated decision as to how much air time you want versus how much roll time you want, and make that nice even pendulum swing, end up with a pretty decent shot. And
just to expand a little bit on what you just said there at the end, different clubs. I think a lot of us amateurs, no matter what the chip shot is, we're either grabbing our sand wedge or we're grabbing our pitching wedge, and that's it. And we're walking out to hit that shot. I think based on some of the other things that I read, you're more of a proponent of make sure if you can get the ball on the ground for as long as possible, that's a better opportunity, a better recipe for success, right?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the very first things I do when I look at a shot that I'm about to hit, a chip shot that I'm about to hit, is where is halfway? And it's if halfway to the hole is on the green, and let's say it's on the green maybe 3 or 4 feet, I can say, okay, that's my pitching wedge. That's ground zero. Pitching wedge is going to fly halfway and roll halfway. And so if I know that I've got more green to work with and halfway is 15 feet onto the green, I've got that 15 feet that I can work with. I can go back and go down to 9-iron or 8-iron and just carry the ball just onto the green and let it roll out. You're in a little bit more control. You don't have to be as precise. Your skill level doesn't have to be as high if you get the ball on the ground quickly. And I think, everybody loves to see that ball go up in the air and land. But if we are standing there and we've got sandwich in our hand, our tendency is to hit it where we think and end up coming up way too far short because we don't allow for there to be enough rollout. So you need that lower loft so that it will actually roll out. If you think about European golf, or I should say, Scottish golf, where they roll the ball on the ground a lot, they seem to be pretty good at that. If you can figure out how to do that with everything up from, your 8-iron, your 7-iron, your 6-iron, maybe even a hybrid, and have those land short of the green and see what they do, and then realize that that's a uneven, unknown surface. If you hit it into the hill, if you hit it into the grain, you're not really sure what that ball is going to do. But if you can land the ball on the green and let it roll out, you're going to have a better understanding of how that grass is going to work for you. It's going to let the ball roll out. So to then take those clubs, the little bit higher lofted wedge, the pitching wedge, the sand wedge, maybe the lob wedge, and fly them on the green and see how far they go. I like to take students and drop a poker chip on the green and have them stand there with 4 or 5 different clubs and just try to make a swing that will land the ball at that poker chip so they can see how far it rolls out. And you can sort of see the light bulb go on where, wow, on number 2, when the pin's up front, I could hit my sand wedge and land it that far on the green and it'll stop by the hole. But if the pin's way back, I can't hit my sand wedge because it got up in the air way too much and I don't know how far back to swing and how far through to swing. So maybe I could take my 8-iron and land it at that same spot and it'll roll all the way back. And it's kind of fun, to see people kind of grasp that and realize that there is some imagination here that you can definitely use and play rather than just try to hit these shots that you see the tour pros do every week. The big difference is they practice a whole lot more than the amateur golfers do. They have better control of their ball. So, on those days where you feel a little sassy and you've got a good feel going, sure, fly the ball. But definitely, if you're trying to get your scores down, get that ball on the ground as fast as you can, land it on the green, and let it roll out to your pin.
Yeah, one more before I let you go, and I want to switch gears a little bit. In a few weeks, we're going to have the Augusta National Women's Amateur event with the final round being played there at Augusta National. How big of an event become for women's amateur golf?
Oh, I think it is outstanding. Of course, I would love for the young women to be playing at Augusta National for the entire event, but it's a start. And there was a lot of talk when it was first announced about why isn't the LPGA, it should be the LPGA playing the event. They're not a bunch of amateurs. And I disagree because the players on the LPGA have lots of opportunity to play wonderful golf courses. And to be honest, I'm not sure that if they really thought about it, they really dug deep down, the comparison of the pro women versus the pro men on that golf course, I think would be overwhelming. And I don't think it would be a bonus. But for the amateur golfers, they don't have as many opportunities to play exceptional golf courses like Augusta National. So I think it's a wonderful step, and I hope that in the future we get to see, maybe the final 2 rounds on Augusta instead of just the final round. But boy, this is the one time that I would like to be that, 20-year-old kid playing college golf and top ranked so that I could get that invitation, because what a great opportunity for that. And for all those younger kids who are there at the drive, chip, and putt, for those girls, little girls, to know that they might have the opportunity to play Augusta National one day in that event is just, I think it's really inspiring. I kudos to Augusta National for making that happen. And I'll definitely watching to see score. I wish I could get up there to see it, but, I definitely watching to follow some of the players that I know that are playing and sort of be happy for them, and for women's golf too for that event, because I think it's going to be wonderful.
Gail, let our listeners know, how can they stay up to date with all the great things you're doing and follow you, whether it's online or it's on social media?
Well, I've got my website, gailgrahamgolf.com. I'm also on Facebook, and Instagram is gailgrahamgolf.com, so you can find me there. You can follow me once in a while on the Golf Channel and some of the LPGA events. I do some commentating out there, and obviously at Esplanade Golf Club and Golf and Country Club down here in Naples. Come visit me. Would love to see everybody and also to hear from them as well.
Well, Gail, it's always a huge thrill having you as part of this show. I can't thank you enough for coming back and joining me again tonight. I hope you'll do it again soon. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks a lot, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Take care, Gail. All the best to you and your family.
Thanks.
See you, Gail. That's the great Gail Graham. And I tell you, folks, GailGrahamGolf.com is the name of her website. It's absolutely outstanding stuff, and a lot of great articles, a lot of great videos, a lot of great instruction, and really looking forward to having her as part of the show again real soon. I've got my next guest, Tom Patri, hanging on the line. I'm going to get to Tom right on the other side of this real quick message about our friends over at 2 Under. I want to welcome our newest sponsor, 2 Under Men's Performance Briefs, the unofficial underwear of the PGA Tour. Worn by PGA Tour players like Ricky Fowler, David Toms, Jerry Kelly, William McGirt, Jason Kokrak, and Matt Everett, to name just a few. Your buddies are going to think you're a stud if they're even seeing you in your underwear, but that's another story. And your girlfriend and her wife is going to love the side effects, a visibly enhanced profile. The Joey Pouch technology provides the ultimate male asset management. It separates a man's most valuable assets from bodily contact to reduce unwanted skin-on-skin contact, providing less chafing, more control, and an altogether more luxurious feel. Start every round 2 Under by wearing the coolest performance briefs on the market. Use code ONTHET20 to save 20% off your order at 2under.com. And that's the number 2, UNDR.com. All right, now back with me here on the French Lick Resort guest line is my good friend Tom Patri. He is now one of the top 25 instructors for Golf Tips magazine. You guys know, joining me a couple of times a month, and I couldn't be more thrilled about that. And speaking of thrilled, the folks up in Indiana have absolutely got to be thrilled that he is now the new director of golf instruction at the Hawthorns Golf and Country Club in Fishers, Indiana. And I am certainly honored that he is back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Good evening, TP. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Christopher, how the heck are you, pal? Nice to hear from you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tom. So as you might have heard, we had Gail Graham on the show right before you, and I started off with Gail asking, what's it like to share the practice tee with Tom Patri? So as turnabout is fair play, what's it like sharing the practice tee with Gail Graham?
I was listening to that interview as I tuned in at 8 o'clock, as I always do, loyally to your show, Chris, and I'm not really used to, or maybe I'm not, I shouldn't be allowed to follow a Hall of Famer. I mean, anytime you have a person on the tee with the experience that Gail has, a playing professional, you win an Australian Masters, you're inducted into your National Hall of Fame. It's got to be a real honor to be alongside. She's not only a great teacher and was a wonderful player, but she's just a wonderful human being. And I think the ladies at Esplanade, I'm not sure they really recognize who they have walking around campus every day and how much they should be taking advantage of her knowledge as new players. But I love working with Gail. She's been an asset to me as a partner, and I've learned as much from her as I hope I've taught her. I mean, she talks about me helping her with her teaching. Well, she's helped me just as much with my coaching. So it's fun being with her. She's a pleasure to be around.
And Tom, you guys are both a part of Golf Tips magazine, and Gail was talking about some of the things that she's putting together for upcoming editions of that magazine. So what are some of the things that new subscribers need to rush out and get the magazine for it, because you're going to be putting some more things in there here soon as well.
Yeah, well, Chris, a lot of things. We have 25 great teachers of that magazine now, not just me and not just Gail. So it's such a worthwhile investment to be part of that magazine as a amateur golfer out there trying to get better. I'm very excited about the fact that Vic Williams, our editor, has asked me to do a column by issue 2 called TP Talks Golf. So that's going to be a new addition to the magazine. It's going to start this season. I'm excited to contribute that column every issue now, as well as the instruction articles that I'll do. But don't tune into Golf Tips magazine online or on the newsstand just because of me. There's 24 other talented people now that are writing for that magazine. If you look at those resumes collectively, I have no problem comparing our resumes as a list, as a top 25 list, with any other list out there in any other magazine on the planet. We have a really talented group of people now.
And Tom, one of the things that you always drill into my head when you come on the show, and Gail even talked about it a little bit tonight as well, short game. It's short game, short game, short game. What are some of the playing lessons that you can share with us tonight that can help us maybe shave a stroke or two off of our scores based on playing better with our short game?
Chris, just like Gail said, one of the things that jumps out at me all the time is we spend so much time on the practice with people, and I know Gail does this, I certainly do. We try to drag people over to the short game area. We try to drag people over the putting green, and what do they want to do? They want to hit the driver further or work on their full swing. I was teaching yesterday afternoon, and I was working with a guy, and I turned around, just glanced over my shoulder as I often do at the short game area Esplanade behind me, and it was stone cold empty. I looked over at the putting green to my right, it was stone cold empty, and every spot on the range was full. I just, after 39 years of doing this, I just shake my head sometimes. It's so hard for me to believe that the average player, with all the information available today statistically, hasn't embraced the short game. Doesn't understand that's the quickest way for them to shave shots off their game. So my first tip is, how about spending some time on your short game? How about just being a little more cognizant of how you divide your time up in your teaching day or your practice day? I don't let my players who are regular players with me, I drill into their head that when they come to the practice facility, they may not come to the tee first. They must go putt first, chip and pitch second, and then if they still have time, the dessert is coming to the practice and hitting some full shots. So if you work from the green backwards, if you work from the cup backwards, and all you did was manage your time better in terms of your practice usage, you'd be a better player tomorrow. So Chris, if I come to Atlanta and I find you on the range hitting drivers, you're fired. You're done. It's over.
Indeed, as I should be. But chicks dig the long ball, Tom. Chicks don't dig the putters. Yeah. That's where the problem is.
Yeah, that's great, Chris. Chicks cost too much money too. Just work on your putting.
Indeed. Tom, I want to get a couple of thoughts for what's going on around the game of golf now from a tournament perspective. Obviously, we're on the heels of the Arnold Palmer Invitational, which is just across the state from you there in Naples. Have you had an opportunity to go over there in the past to check out the tournament and Mr. Palmer's event?
Yeah, Mr. Palmer was an acquaintance of mine. I was blessed to have spent some time in my life with him. I actually shared a couple of lunches with him and spent some time in his office on occasion, both in Latrobe and in Orlando. He's certainly one of my heroes in golf. I think that anybody who has any love for this game misses Arnold Palmer, as we miss some of our heroes when they leave us. He was a hero of mine as a little boy growing up in the game. He inspired me in the game. Everybody wanted to be Arnold Palmer or Seve Ballesteros, and the swashbuckling, charismatic kind of people that they were. So Arnold was definitely missed. What a display Francesco Molinari put on Sunday. That was just unbelievable. I mean, I got to sneak home and catch the last 4 holes live from work, which I don't often get to do. And, here's a guy that plays golf so simply. There's nothing, if you didn't know who he was and you're on a range next to him, he probably wouldn't impress you hitting golf balls. I mean, it's nothing spectacular. It's just pure, simple management. Plays within himself, plays beautifully balanced golf, doesn't get very excited, doesn't overpower the golf course, if you saw Francesco Molinari hitting balls next to Dustin Johnson, you'd think that, one was his pro-am partner maybe, but I mean, the guy is amazing how in control he is of his golf ball and his golf game. I really like the guy a lot. He's definitely, an inspiration to the little man out there playing golf, maybe more the way the member could play golf,
And Tom, you mentioned Seve, and now we're a couple of weeks short of the Masters, so we're all starting to look ahead to that. And I know you worked with Seve for a time. You spent some time with him. He won a couple of green jackets in '80 and '83. Your thoughts of remembering Seve and what made him so good out there at Augusta National?
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. Yeah, he became a dear friend. I would call him very much a part-time student. I was not a huge influence in his golf, although I got to spend some time working with him. But he was extremely kind to me. We got to be very, very friendly. Every time this time of year the Masters comes around, and certainly the Open Championship comes around, I can't help but not think about him. And I think about him much more often than that. I've got a whole file on my iPad devoted to pictures of Seve competing and swinging. He was like Arnold. He was a different cat. He was very charismatic. He was very passionate about his golf. I don't think any two people on the planet love the game of golf more than Arnold and Seve possibly, but it's certainly something I think about. Masters time is very exciting for me. It's my favorite tournament on the planet, and I don't have any problem saying that. I don't work on Masters Sunday. I never have booked a lesson on Masters Sunday. My book is always X'd out on Masters Sunday, and I'm the guy who watches the 11 o'clock highlights and anything on ESPN on the Golf Channel. I can't get enough of Masters Week, and we go on occasion. Denise and I go up there. We've been to a couple of tournaments. I've been to 4 or 5 of them now. It's the pinnacle for me. There's nothing greater than Masters Week.
And Tom, here we are. It is Players Championship week, and I want to get your thoughts on that tournament as well. We look at TPC Sawgrass and Pete Dye's course and the 17th green and all of that. What sticks out for you when you're watching the Players?
So this is when I get in trouble, Chris. You always see one of those up to me every interview. I mean, this is where I really get in trouble with my peers at the PGA of America. I think the stature of that tournament, the quality of that field, the quality of that golf course, it's the strongest field in golf all year long. The purse, the tradition, who's won that golf tournament now, how they've won that golf tournament. I think that's I don't think it's golf's 5th major. I think it's golf's 4th major. I think it's ahead of the PGA Championship, and I am going to get bad emails for this one. I'm going to get bad text messages for this one, really bad. But there's no comparison to the strength of the field with the PGA Championship. I think that people have trouble sometimes, and I'm a traditionalist, but sometimes I have trouble with tradition and understanding or seeing what it is for what it really is. But that is a major championship, and I think strength of field alone puts it ahead of the PGA. I think now we're a bunch of decades into this event. Look at who's won it, how they've won it, the excitement of it, the excitement of that golf course, what Pete did with that golf course with stadium golf. There's so many positives about that tournament that just jump off the screen at you. So many storylines to that tournament. The 17th green, going to 16 and 2, the drive on 18. I mean, come on, folks. That is a major golf championship.
Tom, I want to get a couple other thoughts from you. And first, I saw you tweeted out that Mountain Lake Country Club there in Lake Wales, Florida, you said that is in your personal top 10. Talk about that course, and what are some of the other courses in Tom Patri's top 10?
Well, Mountain Lake is a really unusual beast, Chris. It's tucked away in Lake Wales, Florida, which is not nowhere, but it's right next to nowhere. You couldn't trip over it you can't get there off an interstate. It's a back road to get there. It's tucked away in sleepy, quiet Lake Wales, Florida. It's a Seth Rayner, early turn of the century design. It's Seth Rayner at its very best, who happens to be my favorite. It's totally untouched, totally unspoiled. It's not on very many people's radar screens, but it hasn't been altered. It hasn't been changed. It's probably, I don't think it's 6,800 yards falling off the very back tee. It's so much fun. There's a Barretts, there's a punch bowl. There's a Redan. Every traditional golf hole from Scotland is on that golf course, and they're not replicas. They are really well done, like a really well done Redan, a really well done Barretts, a really well done punch bowl. and classic design of golf holes. It's just a fantastic place. It's a sleepy, tucked away. It's like it's like going back in time. Every time I drive through the gate, I feel like I'm back in 1935 or something like that. It's one of my favorite places to go. It's not overdone. It's not overwhelming. It's not over the top. It's simple, pure golf right in front of you. So it's really way up on my list. It's not the bravado of an Oakmont or Shinnecock or anything like that. It's just great fun golf, the way golf really should be, I think, for the member and even for the better player. It's a challenging golf course. It's fun. But as far as my favorites, I mean, there's so many to choose from, Chris, but I mean, you know, here in the States, Shinnecock and National Golf Links of America, I'm a Long Island boy, so I always go back to my roots. Those two are, you know, two places that, you know, always revered as me as a kid growing up. Bethpage Black certainly is one of my all-time favorites. You know, as a public course kid growing up there, it's you know, it's kind of the cathedral of public golf in the world. It's one of the hardest damn golf courses you'll ever play. You know, so those are some of my favorites there up in the Northeast. You know, St. Andrews, you have to put that in the mix just because it's St. Andrews and it feels like you're going to the Vatican. I'm a big Carnoustie fan. I'm a big Turnberry fan. So those are some of my favorites. San Francisco Golf Club on the West Coast and Cypress Point are two of my all-time favorites. Cypress Point might be my favorite walk in golf. So if you just took those golf courses and put them on your list, I think you'd pretty much have died and gone to heaven.
Tom, just a couple more before we let you go. And one of the things that I hear a lot of people say is, boy, he or she's got a good golf swing, but they're not a good ball striker. What's the difference? How can you have a good golf swing but still not be a good ball striker?
Because you can't find the middle of the face. You know, I mean, pretty doesn't perform necessarily. You know, the only box that matters on the scorecard, Chris, is the one right after the 18th hole you put that last number in. I mean, you think Jim Furyk has a pretty golf swing? Raymond Floyd, Chichi Rodriguez? None of those were pretty, but they all got the ball to come out of the middle of the face in a compressed manner. So I'm not a big pretty fan. I don't really care much about pretty. I'm more a functionality guy. So if you can compress the golf ball and make the ball come out of the middle of the face, there's a lot of ways to skin that cat. That's why, you know, I'm not a method teacher. That's not why, you know, everybody has to do it the same way teacher. I mean, if you look at the greatest golf swings on tour, you'd find fault in just about every one of them. I mean, you'd find something you wanted to change, and you'd be a fool to change any of them in most cases. I mean, you know, Jim Furyk, if you didn't know who Jim Furyk was and you saw him on the range next to you, you'd give him to his side. You know, and he'd beat the living tar out of you. You know, I mean, Jim Furyk makes the ball come out of the face, in the middle of the face every single time. So I think, you know, I was influenced by the great late Bill Strasbaugh and Jim Flick, and they both imparted their wisdom on me and said to me, be careful when you rush in there with somebody. You know, watch a lot of shots, watch the ball flight, watch the consistency of the flight, and listen to the sound off the face. If you like where the ball goes, and you like the trajectory and the curvature, and you like where the sound's coming off the face, so I watch a lot of shots with my players, especially my better players, before I make many changes. I don't think pretty is the answer. I think functionality is the answer.
Tom, before we let you go, we want you to keep teeing it up. You're headed to Fishers, Indiana in a couple of months. You're now the director of golf instruction at the Hawthornes Golf and Country Club up there. Let the people of Indiana know what's coming their way.
Well, I mean, I think what's coming their way is fundamentally sound teaching and coaching. I mean, I think, you know, Chris, you know, I've talked a lot of golf over the last couple of years together. I'm a fundamentalist. You know, Gail said so many great things about grip, aim, alignment, stance, posture, ball position, and spacing. If you don't get the launching pad right, you know, not much can go right in the motion. So I think what they're going to hear is a really fundamentally sound approach to the game. I think they're going to hear things that they can actually do and achieve. I think they're going to leave the practice tee every single time with me, not confused about their golf swing, not confused about their golf game. I think they're going to say, why didn't I do this 20 years ago? Why wasn't I a fundamentalist? Why was I, you know, chasing the Holy Grail? I'm really excited. I'm excited when I have new people in front of me because they, you know, they're ready to get better. You know, if a person takes time out of their schedule to take an hour golf lesson, they want to be there. They want to get better. There's a reason they want to be there. So I love that passionate golfer. I love that person in search of a better strike, a better compression off the face. I'm excited about being up there. Tommy Moore is a dear friend. I'm so grateful to him for having me as part of his staff. It should be a lot of fun. It's a part of the country I have not spent any time in. I've heard so many great things about it. There's so many Midwesterners in Naples that are just polite, fun, respectful people. So I'm really looking forward to being up there.
Tom, let our listeners know how they can stay up to date with all the great things you're doing, both on your website and now you're all over Twitter and Instagram. Let them know how they can follow you there as well.
Yeah, Chris, every social media platform, just like you, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and multiple pages on Facebook. The website is simply tompatri, PATRI.com. I love hearing from people. I love hearing their comments on those pages. I love when they reach out. Email address is tpatri@mindspring.com, and I love, getting people to ask me their questions or give me their thoughts. I just love talking to people about the game, as you do, Chris. That's why we do this, because we love the greatest game on the planet. So I'm excited.
As you should be, and as the people up in Indiana should be as well. Tom, thank you so much for coming back and being a part of the show again tonight. I love the fact that you're going to be joining me a couple of times a month. It's certainly my favorite segment of the show. Thank you for being here tonight.
Chris, my man, it's a pleasure to be with you. You know how much I love the fact that you're so passionate about the game, like anybody out there that loves the game is. I mean, people like, we talked about Arnie, we talked about Seve tonight, Gail Graham certainly, and you're no different than us, man. You're just one of the people that really love the game and respect the game, and we're happy you're part of our game. Thank you for having me, pal. I
appreciate you, TP. Take care, my friend. All the best to you and your family. Look forward to catching up in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, sir.
See you, Tom. That is the great Tom Patri. Tom Patri Golf. I'm telling you, folks, you got to follow him both on Twitter and Instagram. Go check out his website, Tom Patri, PATRI. I'm telling you, you're going to find a lot of great content, a lot of great videos, a lot of great instruction. And as we started out the segment talking about Golf Tips Magazine, Tom is one of the leaders with putting all the content and the other instructors together for that magazine. Obviously, his content is going to be in there. And when I found out all about this, months ago, I certainly was, very quick to go out and subscribe to the magazine. So many great instructors. And there are so many of the folks that have been a part of this show over the years as well. Our good friend Cindy Miller is on there as well. Allison Kurtz, who's absolutely fantastic. So a lot of great instructors are a part of Tom's team there on Golf Tips magazine. So highly recommend it. I take it to the practice range with me because I'll open up the magazine, lay it on the ground, and I'm following the instruction that Tom or Gail or Cindy or Allison or those guys are putting together to make sure that I'm getting better. I can't recommend it highly enough. Look forward to having Tom back on the show here in a couple of weeks. All right, folks, time for me to put a bow on this edition of Next on the Tee. My sincere thanks go out again to Bob Estes, Gail Graham, and of course Tom Patri for joining me again tonight. Please give me your thoughts. Check out our page on Facebook, Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro. Give me a like, give me a comment, give me a question that you would like for me to get answered for you. I'd be glad to pass it along to the appropriate person, get that question answered for you, whether it's on the air or off. I'll be glad to put it out there for you as well. Please check out our website, nextonthetee.net. On there, you'll be able to see who our guest schedule is and who will be joining me here. Very much appreciate the fact that folks are going on there, checking out the content. And obviously, we link back to our page over on Podbean, so you can listen, download, or stream any of our archive episodes for free from there. So we link back to that page over on Podbean. Next on the Tee, you'll find it front and center there on the Podbean app as well, right there in the golf section. So really appreciate everybody that's checking out the show through there as well. Please also check out our sister show on the football side, Thursday Night Tailgate, with me and my co-host Bob Lazari and our announcer Joe LaJanusha. That show airs live every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. You can stream it live on Blog Talk Radio or as a free podcast. Again, that show like this one available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audio Boom, Amazon, Alexa. So just check us out. Pretty much anywhere that you've got podcasting content, you're going to find both shows. On Thursday Night Tailgate, we're joined every week by 5 NFL legends who come on and share their stories from their playing days and lend us their insights into what's going on around the league now as well. Plus, we highlight 2 players doing great things in their communities in our Spotlight on the Positive segment. You can find that website, ThursdayNightTailgate.com. And again, this one, nextonthetee.net. Folks, thanks again for choosing to listen to the show tonight. We really appreciate the fact that you're making us part of your golfing content. Until next week, hit 'em straight, my friends.
top instructors.